Pete Robinson stood in the bathroom mirror studying his thin, pale face. At 6 in the evening, he was preparing what would be his third murder. He knew the danger increased with each killing, so he had to be extremely careful this time. From the bathroom window, he watched his wife Jane walk into their small garden. He didn't like her being alone out there. New neighbors had just moved in next door, and he worried some friendly woman might try to befriend Jane. That would complicate everything. Pete had a very specific method, and it required isolation. His pattern was always the same. Using a fake name, he would vacation in unfamiliar places where he'd find middle-aged, unattractive women with money, but no family. He convinced them to marry him quickly, persuaded them to make wills, leaving everything to him, and then staged fatal accidents. His first wife, Clara, had died in a bathtub just 4 weeks after their wedding. The police found nothing suspicious, though a young reporter had written about the tragedy. His second wife, Mary, caused more trouble when her brother appeared at the funeral asking questions about her money. There was a court case, but Pete won and collected the insurance payment. Now, 4 years later, with a new identity and working in a different part of the country, he felt safe. He had met Jane at a seaside hotel restaurant, where she sat alone, looking unhappy but wearing an expensive ring after her mother's death. This 42-year-old former teacher had inherited considerable wealth and seemed lost about what to do next. Pete's romantic approach worked perfectly, and within 4 weeks they were married. They both made wills, leaving everything to each other, then moved into this cheaply rented house. Jane turned out to be cheerful and sensible, which almost made Pete feel sorry for her. But he pushed that feeling aside. 2 things forced him to act sooner than planned. First, Jane refused to discuss her finances and kept all her papers locked away. Second, she showed too much interest in his supposed job as a pharmaceutical company partner, wanting to visit his office. It was time to finish this. Pete had prepared everything carefully. He'd painted the bathroom himself and installed a small shelf above the bathtub. On that shelf sat a cheap green electric heater that blended with the wall color. He'd connected it to a socket just outside the bathroom door. His plan was simple but deadly. He filled the bathtub and turned on the heater, watching the bars glow red hot. Then he went downstairs to the electrical cupboard and switched off the power using a cloth to avoid fingerprints. Back in the bathroom, as the heater bars cooled to black, he placed it into the water at the bottom of the tub, where it would look like it had accidentally fallen from the shelf. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him. Jane's head appeared just meters away, above the kitchen roof, below the bathroom window. She was standing on a ladder, cleaning leaves from the roof's edge. Startled but staying calm, Pete told her he was preparing a special beauty bath for her. He urged her to hurry before the bubbles disappeared. As Jane climbed down the ladder, Pete poured expensive bath solution into the tub, creating a thick layer of rose-scented bubbles that completely hid the heater. Jane arrived at the bathroom door, exclaiming about the bubbles covering everything. Pete insisted she get in quickly before the treatment lost its strength. She locked the door as he expected. He walked slowly to the electrical box, forcing himself to wait another minute. Then he called out to her, asking how the bath felt. She replied that she'd just gotten in and it smelled nice. Counting to 3, he pulled the switch down. A small explosion confirmed the electricity had cut off. Then everything went silent. Pete knocked on the bathroom door. No answer, no sound at all. He knew he had to wait 40 minutes before raising an alarm. He'd learned from his mistake with Mary not to seem worried too quickly. While waiting, he decided to finally open Jane's locked writing case that he'd discovered earlier in her drawer. The lock was difficult, but he managed to break it open. Inside were financial documents and her savings book. His hands trembled as he read the figures, turning pages excitedly. Then his heart raced when he saw that on October 7th, Jane had withdrawn almost all her money. Perhaps it was in these thick envelopes. He tore one open and papers scattered across the floor. Among them was an envelope with his name on it, written by Jane just 2 days ago. Pete ripped it open with shaking hands. The letter began by saying it would be a terrible shock to him. Jane wrote that any middle-aged woman who suddenly marries a stranger would naturally wonder why. When he asked her to make a will on their wedding day, she became worried. When he started making changes to the bathroom, she knew she had to act fast, so she went to the police. The letter revealed that the neighbors next door aren't actually a married couple, but a police inspector and policewoman. They had shown Jane to old newspaper clippings about women who died in bathtub accidents shortly after marriage. Both articles included photos of the husband at the funeral. Though the pictures weren't very clear, Jane had recognized Pete. The police had been searching for this man since Pete's second wife's brother provided the photographs. Jane wrote that the inspector needed to catch Pete in the act of committing the crime. That's why she agreed to play along, forcing herself to be brave. Then came the final revelation that made Pete's blood run cold. Jane explained that when he discovered she had disappeared from the bathroom, he would realize she had actually climbed out over the kitchen roof and was now sitting safely in the house next door. Pete's face twisted with rage as he finished reading. The house remained quiet around him, but then, in that terrible silence, he heard the back door suddenly burst open. Heavy footsteps began rushing up the stairs toward him, and he knew his carefully planned murders had finally led to his own capture. The hunter had become the hunted, trapped by the very cleverness he thought made him untouchable.